Time for one of those cooking challenge videos. This time I'm going to Iceland. Now, just to clear up any potential confusion, when I say I'm going to Iceland, I mean Iceland the shop, not Iceland the country. Although, fun fact, there are Iceland stores in Iceland the country. Here's one in Iceland. It's just up the road from Iceland. Confused? Don't be. Iceland is a chain of supermarkets originating in the UK, but also found in some other countries such as Spain, Portugal, Norway and Iceland. As the name of the shop might suggest, they specialise in frozen foods. They do also carry other categories of groceries, but mostly it's frozen stuff. Anyway, we're going to need a few parameters. There won't be many because rules make rules lawyers. This video is part of the cheapISH series, so here's how that works. I'll buy 8 items from different categories. We might need a little bit more leeway given the freezer-dominated nature of this shop, but suffice to say I will buy 8 different kinds of things. From that, I need to create 3 different dishes, although I often also make a 4th bonus dish, so I might do that this time. These dishes don't have to be a coherent menu or anything like that. As always, this is just an exercise in trying to work with what I have. It's not meant to be realistic or anything. There will be the usual allowances of salt, pepper, water, 1 herb, 1 spice, 1 sauce, 1 tablespoon of fat or oil, and 1 foraged or homegrown item. So that's that bit. Let's go shopping. So the first thing that hit me when I walked in is a lot of things aren't especially cheap here. I suppose that's not too surprising for the non-frozen stuff. For example, this bread is probably above average supermarket prices. Indeed, I think it's fair to say that this is really not the kind of shop where you'd buy every kind of shopping routinely. The majority of the items here are ready-made items like frozen pizzas, ready meals and such. The fresh produce section is small and again seems a bit pricey to me. But, and this is a thing we'll see more than once, some of the cheaper things really aren't what I would have expected, like this pineapple. There are some items that stand out as reasonably good value. This pack of mushrooms, for example, will have that. Looking at the fresh meat in here, the prices again are just generally a bit higher than some of the other supermarkets. Again, I'm not saying that I'm surprised. This is a store that specialises in frozen food, not fresh. They do have a range of frozen products where the price is uniformly £1 per item, and there is some interesting stuff in here. Indeed, if the objective here was just to spend as little as possible for a day's food in this particular store, buying 2 or 3 of these items would probably cover it. But of course, that's not the objective here. I'm really looking for ingredients, not meals. Maintaining the £1 price point for this product range has clearly been an exercise in shrinkflation. For example, this pack of 10 pork sausages, a few years back this would have been a pack of 20, and the sausages themselves would probably have been individually larger than these feel like through the wrapper. There's a pack of burgers here I could maybe use, but I decided to keep looking. How about instead a pack of these lawn sausage slices? I haven't bought these for years. I want some sort of staple carb to go with these things, so in rather a break from convention, how about this pack of instant ramen? There's a fairly good range of frozen vegetables, but the bottom end of the price range for these is generally above the lower prices for other supermarkets. Weirdly, the cheapest frozen vegetable was okra. This is strange to me, as this is normally quite an expensive vegetable here. I'm not buying that though, I'll keep looking. Basic ingredients are neither cheap nor plentiful in choice here. If you want flour, for example, there is little choice, and this is roughly double the price of the cheapest flour in other supermarkets. Again, that's just because this is not that kind of a shop. There is always Bombay mix, I suppose, but we did that fairly recently, so maybe not. I was going to see if they had a completely unadorned frozen pizza base, but if they did, I couldn't find it. But this garlic bread has potential, I think. Back over at fresh vegetables, and I considered the Savoy cabbage and the Brussels sprouts, but settled on broccoli. I don't always have ideas for recipes forming during the shopping, but I did here. And I really wanted to get some cheese. There were some processed cheese slices, 11% cheese, but I went a little bit less cheap and got one of these small packs of actual real cheese. Back at the fresh vegetables again, it's fair to say that I do spend a lot of time walking back and forth in the shopping part of these videos, and Iceland really doesn't want you doing that. The main part of the store has a sort of one-way system that inhibits doubling back, but it wasn't busy, so it wasn't a problem. All the way back to the entrance for some eggs, and I think we're done. Let's pack this up and go home. Okay, well, here is the haul. A pack of 3 sweet peppers for £1.85. I was hoping there might have been a red pepper in the packs, but I rummaged all the way through and they were all orange and yellow like that. A brace of garlic baguettes for £1. A pack of lawn sausage slices. 8 slices of sausage. Wow, 31% pork with 5% beef. So not very meaty sausages, but they are what they are. I don't often buy lawn sausages, but I remember buying a pack a few years back and it was twice this long. So I think this has had some shrinkflation. This was £1.50. Now here's something you don't often see on this series. A pack of instant noodles. 4 times 70 grams of Koli kimchi noodles. £1.20. So 30p per pack. Not terrible value. Mushrooms, 300 grams of mushrooms for £1. 6 mixed weight eggs. Eggs are typically sold in small, medium and large sizes in the UK, although I don't think I've recently seen small, but usually packs of medium and large. This is mixed weight, which means they can put all sorts of things in here and they kind of aim for a total pack weight that's consistent with some value. But I don't know what that value is. It's not marked on here anyway. So anyway, 6 mixed weight free range eggs, £1.60. A pack of broccoli, 400 grams of broccoli, £1. And finally, 220 grams, suspiciously shrinkflation-y number there, of double Gloucester cheese for £2, bringing the total of the shopping to £11.15. So not the cheapest bunch of shopping we've ever done on this series, but not tremendously expensive, really, for the amount of food we've got here. There's more than enough food for one day for one person here. There's enough food, really, here for 2 people, probably for 2 days. Anyway, tomorrow we got to make this into 3 different meals. So I think for breakfast, so since we've got these lawn sausages, I'm not even sure, I think Scottish style recipe. I don't know if it actually says sausage anywhere on the pack, because these are 31% pork, with the rest being rusk, beef connective tissue, soya protein, dextrose, pork rind, stabilizer. The meat content probably is about 50% if you include pork rind and beef connective tissue. I'm probably going to cook more than I need here so that I've got some cooked bits of sausage to use for something else later, to just economize a little bit on cooking. Given the ingredients, I suspect these will shrink a little bit. I'm going to put them straight in there. They cook from frozen. How many are we going to get in here? Looks like 4. I'm expecting a fair bit of fat will come out of these, so I haven't added any of my fat allowance. I want to make a kind of stuffed omelette, so I'm going to use a bit of my orange pepper. I'm going to slice up some of this pepper. This is to go inside my omelette. So this little bit of pepper here is just going to cook alongside the sausages for now. When I say it's going to cook alongside the sausages, they're not shrinking as much as I thought they would. I don't think that's a sign of any particular kind of quality, but they are maintaining their shape and size, kind of. While that's occurring, I think we'll just prepare some of these mushrooms, and I am going to wash these, break from my usual convention, but actually just to save time and effort, we'll have about half the mushrooms. I'll just give those a rinse. Now this is the reason why I don't commonly wash mushrooms, mainly because I just don't need it actually, because you can just wipe them, but also they tend to get a bit slippery and slimy, and that can just make them unpleasant to handle, but also a little bit unsafe to handle. They're a bit slippy for cutting. So these sausage slices are done. Any more than this and they're going to start drying out. I'm very surprised that they didn't shrink at all. I just expected that they would, but maybe if they had a bit more meat in them they would have shrunk. Anyway, those mushrooms can now go in there. And my little bits of pepper. Now with this second batch of mushrooms, I'm going to slice these thin. I'm going to be cooking all of the mushrooms this morning, and then I'll save them in the fridge, and I've got then cooked mushrooms I can add to things later without having to do that bit of cooking again. Meanwhile, over here, the peppers and the first batch of mushrooms are actually cooking quite well. So this second batch of mushrooms can go in here, and I'll keep them separate-ish. So a little bit of water on mushrooms to get them started is often a really good thing, because it softens them, it breaks down the tissues a little bit, the juices come out, and then you can kind of reduce it and go back to frying a little bit later. These garlic baguettes are, I think, let's have a look, does it say cook from frozen? For best results, cook from frozen. Well, I'm not doing that. I'm going to leave those out to thaw out, because the usage I've got for these in mind needs these to be thawed before I cook them. Likewise, the rest of the sausages I'm going to take out and let those thaw now, because I'm going to smoosh these into meatballs or something. Breakfast is going to be a 3-egg omelette. So my herb for today is going to be oregano, and we will have a little bit of that. And my spice is going to be nutmeg, so we'll have a little shake of that in there as well. Double Gloucester cheese, so I'm just going to cut a bit of that cheese into little cubes. Okay. My fat allowance is going to be this little chunk of butter here, which is, well, you'll have to take my word for it, that is approximately a tablespoon, and we'll just have about that much of it. So we're going to cook this really gently, just give it a little jiggle, but we're not making scrambled eggs here, so I'll stop right there. Now I'm going to want this cheese to melt into the omelette, so now that the bottom bit of it is set, just have that across the middle there. Going super slow with this because I want to just gently cook the eggs and have them nice and tender. Now, I was thinking about putting the mushrooms in here, but I think there's still quite a lot of moisture in the mushrooms. I think that will probably spoil my omelette. Okay, and right, heat can go off now, because that will just, the rest of that will cook in the residual heat of the pan. We'll go and get the plate ready. My choice of sauce today is going to be hoisin sauce. Just because I happen to have this in the fridge, I thought that might be an interesting thing to do. Now, I haven't got your chefy restaurant plates, but you know, we can still do that thing like that. Omelette goes on there. Mushrooms can go into that little bit of sauce there. And a few little bits of my orange pepper just on there. How's that? I don't think there's going to be any major surprises here. I have a little bit of pepper. Right, let's have a look inside this omelette first to see if I've managed to do that correctly. No, a little bit over, I would say, for my preference. Probably because I was setting and resetting cameras. But there we go. Cheese omelette. The nutmeg does make a little difference. These sausages be interesting. Very strange texture. Quite salty. Bit of a bacon flavour to them. These sausages are very strange. Now, bear in mind this has been sitting while I was cooking the other things. Oddly firm texture for something that's made of processed meat. These sausages with that sauce, though, that really works. Okay, I will think some more about that. Not a bad breakfast. So I've got a couple of those sausage slices cooked left over. That's to simplify lunch, as indeed are all of these cooked mushrooms. So one really quick thing, we don't have any kind of stock cubes or anything today, apart from, actually we do have some sachets of stock powder in the ramen noodles, but this pan in which the mushrooms and the peppers and the sausages have been fried has got a fond on the bottom of the pan. So I'm just going to loosen that with a bit of water. I'll just let that sit for a moment and then we'll decant that off into a container and keep that because that's flavour. Lunch is going to be a ramen bowl. Since we have these ramen noodles, we might as well try and dress these up a little bit. I want a nice boiled egg with a just tender yolk in it. So first thing to do is boil an egg. All right, water's just coming up to a nice rolling boil. I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes. At the end of that time, the egg is going to come out and go straight into some cold water. Now, in theory, I could use this hot water to make my noodles, but this has had the kind of dirt and bits and pieces of eggshell and whatnot. So, pan washed out, clean water, and we'll get that on to boil while we prepare everything else. So the broccoli, we've actually got two different vegetables here. We've got the green florets, and then we've got the stalk. And those can be treated as two completely different vegetables. The stalk, well, we'll get rid of that bit on the end there. Now, that's quite woody. Just trim off some of the thicker skin there. Right, so this bit of broccoli stalk, I could shave this using the mandolin side of the grater, but I think I'll just grate it. Yeah, this is quite a tough one actually, but let's have a little taste of that. That's fine. Yeah. So this is a bit like turnip or kohlrabi. So we've got that. Just caught myself on the grater. And we're also going to have broccoli. And we break it into the smallest florets we can. Then I think we'll have some very fine pieces of this orange pepper. And I think we'll also have some of the yellow. I'll just cut that into really thin slivers. Actually, different flavours. The yellow one's much sweeter. This water's boiling now, so the broccoli is actually just going to go in first. And I'm going to give that 2 minutes. That's actually about 1.5 minutes. But I'm taking that out. I might just run a little bit of cold water over the top of this just to stop it from going all khaki colour. Just to keep the vibrant green. Now in goes the noodles. And we'll just cook those for 3 minutes. So those noodles are going to come straight out into my bowl. Now we haven't made the broth yet, but we have also got this deglaze from the frying pan this morning. So that's going to go in there. And then some of this stock powder, whoops, I spilt some of this stock powder, but not necessarily all of it because, you know, we'll just taste that for, you know, seasoning and flavour level. Yeah, see, that's already quite salty. So I think the rest of this stock powder, I will save it. So back over here, we're going to have a piece of this sausage. And I'm just going to cut this into thin strips. Oh, there is just my egg as well. So I wonder if we got this right. It feels quite soft actually. I think I might have underdone it. Yeah, I think that egg might actually be under by a touch because it's kind of sagging here on the board. Oh, what a shame. let's try and put this together now. So, noodles, we'll have some of this stuff mixed in with them, as well as some of the broccoli mixed in, a bit of the broth, and then the various components. A little bit of the yellow pepper over here. I can't actually see the noodles, so let's just go in there and do that so we can see the noodles. My egg, well, actually it's just right, but it was just so delicate. Anyway, let's get that to the table and give that a taste. Okay, right, now this egg, there's no runny white there actually, it's just very soft and it fell apart. So I think maybe another minute might have done it, but anyway, pretty good. So the broth, when it's diluted with all of these other ingredients, it could do with a little bit more spice. Fortunately, we have some left, so this little sachet will just have a little sprinkle of that seasoning across the top. It's not a bad bowl of noodles. I could, I suppose, continue kicking myself about the presentation of the egg, but at this point I'm more interested in the flavour. This sausage is a bit lost in there. It's a bit mild flavoured. It was definitely worth keeping that bit of deglaze from this morning's frying pan. I can taste like a roasted pepper flavour in there. Good. In preparation for dinner, which I think is going to be 2 courses, I'm going to roast this orange pepper, this whole one that I've got left. And that comprises burning it with a blowtorch. Which is why I'm out here in the utility room. So I'm just going to scorch it all over like this. Some people have suggested doing this in the oven. I've never managed to get them quite as well roasted in the oven as I can this way. Because actually what we're not doing is cooking the whole pepper, we're just searing the skin. And there is a reason for that. This develops an amazing flavour. And I've seen people do this on top of the gas hob as well. Now, that was never my preference anyway, but also I don't have a gas hob anymore. So this is the way I've always done it. And this is not a chef's blowtorch, this is a plumber's blowtorch. Okay, that'll do. Scorched all over, and then that's going to just go in a plastic bag like that. I just leave that now to steam, and the steam will loosen that burnt skin and will scrape most of the burnt skin off. For my foraged item, I'm going down here in our woods because we've got ground elder. Now normally this would be a bit of a calamity, but it's okay here in the woods. This is ground elder. Got a kind of parsley-like flavour to it. It's very, very young at the moment, and it'll be delicious. So, now I wouldn't normally recommend picking it at this early stage of development because you wouldn't necessarily be sure about what it is, but I happen to know this patch because it's on our own land. I know the plant very well anyway. So, quite happy to pick it from here. So it's a plant that's in the carrot family, and it has a flavour a bit similar to parsley. People do eat it as a vegetable. I find it a bit strong flavoured for that, but it's actually a superb substitute for parsley. I might just need a little bit more than that, but there is, well, you never have just a little bit of ground elder.
if you've got it in your garden. Fortunately, as I say, this is not in our garden, this is in the woods. And it doesn't seem to want to spread to the garden. I can hear the rooks in our rookery making a lot of noise. Right, that's probably enough.
So the plan for dinner is going to involve one of these garlic baguettes. But I'm going to cook them both because I think one of them will be my lunch tomorrow. So not just going to make garlic bread, I'm going to load these up a bit. It's already sliced diagonally, but I'm going to slice it down the middle like this. Open that out, something like that. And then this is going to get loaded up with some of this sausage, which I'm just going to cut into very small pieces. So we'll have that like that. We're going to have some of these mushrooms, the sliced ones. Some of this cooked orange pepper. This is the one I fried this morning. I'm going to have some of my ground elder, which is standing in for parsley, thoroughly washed. We're also going to have some oregano. And then if I can do this without grating my fingers this time, just going to grate some cheese on top of that. I'm just going to transfer this into this little bowl to mix it actually, because I feel like that's going to go off the edge of the board. So just mix those herbs and that cheese. And then that is going to go across the top of here into the gap. That's now going to go in a baking tray. And then I'll do the other one the same. So those are ready to go in the oven, but I'm not quite ready to turn it on yet because I want to do something else. These remaining sausage, actually I need to see, does it say Scottish style recipe? Does it actually say sausage anywhere on here? Nope, it doesn't. These are lawn slices, not specifically sausages. So I've got a plan. I'm going to make some herby meatballs. So we'll have some oregano in there. I'm going to mash that together. These are going to be about that big. So I think there might be a part 2 to this video because we've got enough food. So I think we might carry on tomorrow and see what other dishes we can make tomorrow with that. These meatballs will be part of that. And perhaps tomorrow we'll have a different foraged item. And there's still 2 of these slices left. And what we're going to do with these, I'm going to put some hoisin sauce actually and mix it in with these. Maybe too much, or else it might be difficult to handle. But we'll work some of this basically barbecue sauce into the sausage. Okay, I think it'll take a bit more. That's about the limit. So my butter allowance, grease this end of the pan. So yeah, we'll make some patty type things, maybe 3 of them. Seems about the right amount. And these can then go in the oven at the same time as the garlic bread. Right, oven's up to temperature. My loaded garlic bread is going to go in. Instructions say 16 to 18 minutes, so we'll start with 16. Meanwhile, remember this. This is my fire roasted orange pepper. Usually do this with red peppers. But yeah, so that burnt skin now just scrapes off. And well, some people have said you don't throw away the skin. There's a couple of things there. Burnt things tend to be not very good for you anyway. Yeah, it's kind of bitter. So we're going to get rid of this skin. And the pepper underneath is not exactly cooked, but it has gone quite tender. Part of that is just because it hasn't got the skin attached to it anymore. But part is just the process of scalding it with the blow lamp. has partially cooked it. I'm not worried about leaving a little bit of the black burnt skin on there, but get rid of most of it. And we're not going to wash that off, because obviously we wash off some of that smoky flavour that this toasted skin has imparted. And then this pepper is, as I say, partly cooked. Let's get rid of a few more seeds and bits of pith. And I'm going to make a soup. So guess which recurring character is about to recur? It's handheld blender. We'll have a bit of water in there. Nice. So broccoli is what we've got, and I've just chopped this broccoli up. All the florets, I've just kind of shaved them off and chopped them small. Reason being, they'll cook really quickly without losing their colour and flavour. That stalk, I'll just not throw that away just yet. So this broccoli is going to go in straight into the soup pan. So there is barely enough water to cover that broccoli in there. And we're just going to bring that to the boil and simmer it for probably 3 or 4 minutes. I will, I think, season it with a little bit of this powder from the ramen packet. I'm not going to cover this. I'm going to let the water dry off, because then when I add the soup base, which is going to be the pepper sauce, it won't be too diluted. Garlic bread is looking pretty good in the oven, by the way. That's had about 3 minutes. I'm going to put in 3/4 of this orange pepper liquid. That was cold, obviously, so that's going to have to come back to the heat. The remainder of this I'll put in a little container. We might use it tomorrow. A little taste for seasoning. And it's quite sweet, so I'm going to kind of enhance that with a little shake of nutmeg. Alright, so there we go. Loaded garlic bread. Generous portion. There's one left there that I can leave to cool down. And then my broccoli and orange pepper soup. Now I was going to serve these as separate courses, but I think it makes more sense to serve soup and bread together. There we go. I will say that probably hasn't blended quite as well as it ought to have done, but it looks alright, doesn't it? Okay then, this soup, a little bit of nutmeg makes it really good. Just gives it an interesting fragrance. I think probably red pepper would have been nicer, because red pepper's got a fuller flavour. I'm not really sure that this combination does actually work, but it's alright. So this loaded garlic bread, this is going to be cheesy napalm. I mean, I can't take much of the credit for that, because the garlic bread was already prepared, but loading up with other stuff like this really does elevate it quite a bit. And in amongst those other things, and especially with the garlic and the butter, those bits of sausage, that lawn sausage is not quite so bland and disappointing. That does elevate the sausage a bit. Are you allowed to say elevate the sausage on YouTube? The soup's really interesting because the nutmeg and the pepper and the black pepper and the broccoli have all they've all got their own fragrance, and it's all combined, and here's a fragrant soup. So yeah, that was quite a weird soup, but it was interesting to taste how all those different fragrant components of the nutmeg, the broccoli, the pepper, the orange pepper and the black pepper actually combined and played against each other. Now, I'm not saying that's a good recipe, but it was very interesting. And it did juxtapose extremely well against the really robust flavours in the garlic bread. Speaking of which, there is still one piece of garlic bread left. And I have a cunning plan for this for breakfast. That will be included in this video. I think rather than make a part 2, we'll just do a quick addendum on this one. And we'll cover tomorrow's recipes in this one. There are also these. The meatballs have worked quite well. The patties are quite soft and delicate, because obviously I mixed sauce with what was already quite a loose sausage anyway. But as these cool down, they'll probably firm up. But I've got an interesting idea for these. Okay, it's the next day, and I've got this leftover garlic bread and some other bits and pieces. For breakfast, I'm going to reload this garlic bread. I think first I just need to give that a little warm in the microwave just to get it warmed through. So that was just a minute in the microwave. It's just got it warmed through and softened up. And then we've got these weird sausage and hoisin sauce patties. I'm going to have a little bit of taste of this. Well, it definitely has improved the flavour. Slice it into strips. That's 2 of them. Let's see how far that goes. So we're going to put that on there. Yeah, I think more than 2 of them would be too many. If we had an additional garlic bread loaf, then we could do a 3rd layer of reloading. So this is going to be garlic bread reloaded. That would be garlic bread 3 loaded. I've got the grill warming up. We'll put that in there, but we're not done yet. So this orange pepper juice, just a little bit of a drizzling of that along there. Not too much, I don't want to make it soggy. I will have a little bit more sauce, like that. And then we've got plenty of cheese left. Yeah, I'm not going to try and grate that straight on there because half of it misses. So there we go, garlic bread reloaded, ready to go under the grill. Come on. Okay, I'm going to wait for that to cool down just a little bit before we bite into it. But that is garlic bread reloaded. Alrighty then. We'll add a bit of pepper. Most things need it. Oh, look at that. Well, here goes. That is amazing. I mean, why wouldn't it be? Double portions of sausages, sauce, garlic, butter, cheese, mushrooms, everything the body needs. I think this is probably the most decadent thing I've had on this whole series. Anyway, I think we still got one more thing to do. I need to use up those meatballs. So back again at lunchtime. Lunch on day 2, and this is going to be the last bit of cooking for this video. I'm going to make something that is a bit like carbonara, except it won't be, because we don't have any of the right ingredients. Well, very few of them. So instead of spaghetti, I'm going to be using ramen noodles. Instead of pecorino, I'm going to be using double Gloucester. Instead of guanciale or pancetta, we're going to have meatballs. We got eggs, that's the right ingredient. Don't hate me, this is not carbonara. This is just something that's going to use a similar technique to carbonara. So I do need to mention carbonara here, or else people will get upset that I didn't mention it. But please be aware, I'm not claiming this is carbonara. So, these meatballs, and I'm going to slice them up and fry them again. We're going to grate the cheese. Isn't it interesting how, you know, I recently did a video about wood carving, and to everybody's concern, I was cutting towards myself with the knife, using proper Swedish carving techniques, I should say, and that's perfectly safe. And then I go and gouge a piece of my finger off with a cheese grater. I suppose I didn't have my safety head on that day. I'm going to put some broccoli in this, just because it's what we got. So let's take a nice little branch off of here. That one will do. And I'm going to trim this very close to the top of the branches here, like that. So what we end up with is micro florets. So I've got 2 eggs left. I'll start with 1. I'm going to use a whole egg. Let's see how that combines with that much grated cheese, which I haven't weighed or anything. Well, obviously I haven't grated the cheese as finely as I would harder cheese like pecorino. So over here I've got 2 things going on. I'm going to have my noodles in this pan. This pan here, I'm going to just fry those bits of meatball just in a little bit of butter to see if we can crisp them up a bit. By the way, I haven't forgotten to put black pepper in the egg and cheese mix, or at least I haven't now. This is still part of my tablespoon of butter from yesterday. Right, I think the noodles can go in. I'll save that packet for something. The little sausage pieces are getting a bit crispy, that's good. I might just give these a little sprinkle of that stuff just because these sausages are a little bit on the bland side. Okay, now the broccoli is also going to go in with the noodles at the same time, because it'll take about the same amount of time to cook. This pan with the now crispy bits of meatball in there, that's going to be turned right down. About another minute on this. But during that last minute, I'm just going to grab a bit of that water and just put it in here with the egg, just to temper this. I'll go again. A little bit of the hot water in there. And just beat it in. That is time on the noodles. So I'm going to turn that off completely. And then the noodles I'm actually going to drain, because I want the broccoli as well. But I also need some of that liquid potentially. Right. And wait for the sizzling to subside. Just wait for this pan to cool down a tad. Okay, and then in with this egg mix while we stir vigorously. I need to get it off the heat. Try and keep it moving. A little splash of that water from cooking the noodles. It's looking all right, actually. Just give that a little toss and some sauce. Okay, here we go. This is not spaghetti, non-carbonara. Well, it's made a creamy sauce. Here we go. Let's just make sure you can see that properly. It's good for the same reasons that real carbonara is good. It's not as good as real carbonara because it's lacking guanciale or pancetta, the smokiness. But insofar as it's salty meat with noodles in a creamy egg-based cheese sauce, it's pretty darn good. Well, that definitely worked. I dare say that sauce was a little bit more successful than my attempt to make authentic carbonara. Right, I think we'll head off to Studio Shrimp now for the ratings and lessons learned. Okay, time to rate those dishes. Breakfast of omelette and sausage. It was a reasonably nice breakfast, but I would say not really much of a culinary creation. So 6 out of 10. Lunch of ramen bowl. Again, nice enough, but more assembly than actual cookery here. Good flavours, but the egg, which is the one thing I had to cook, was a bit of a fail. Cooked through, but insufficiently firm. This is another 6 out of 10. Dinner of fragrant soup and loaded garlic bread. The soup was weird, but interesting. The garlic bread was pretty great. So altogether, 7 out of 10. Breakfast of reloaded garlic bread. This one was pretty good and felt really quite decadent. I'm still only giving this 8 out of 10 because honestly those sausages were just not that great. This was the best way to present them, hidden in amongst other things. Lunch of not spaghetti, non-carbonara. This was a success, and although it's made from all of the wrong ingredients, it's probably just worth remembering that many of the most cherished and gate-kept recipes have origins that are rooted in just using whatever was available. I used what was available, and I'm fairly happy with the result. This one can have 7 out of 10. Any kind of actual bacon in there instead of the meatballs would have scored higher. But what lessons are there to learn from this week's exercise? Well, I think maybe the obvious one is that Iceland isn't really a shop for people who enjoy cooking. That's not to say it's for people who don't enjoy food. It's just that the opportunities for actual from-scratch cookery are very much more limited here than they are in some other supermarkets. Not a criticism, that's just an observation. But at the same time, there are some chefy surprises to be found there, such as the frozen okra and alongside it frozen garlic, chilli, ginger and coriander, which I don't think I've seen, at least not at such reasonable prices, in other supermarkets. But, and this is just a personal preference, it's made me realise how much more comfortable I am shopping for ingredients than I am trying to make meals out of things that are already trying to be their own meals. This video is already getting a bit too long, so I'm not going to try to do nutritional breakdowns of all of the meals, but here are the basic nutrition values for the whole of the shopping, in case that's of interest. I hope this has been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.